The Special Fathers Network is thrilled to be sponsored by Rubin Law, a multi-generational law firm dedicated exclusively to serving families raising children with special needs. It's not one thing they do, it's the only thing they do. To find out more, go to rubinlaw.com, RUBIN law.com, or call 847-279-7999 and mention the Special Fathers Network for a free consultation.
Life is beautiful, and it doesn't matter whether you're short, tall, or your color, everybody is equal, and just the gift of life is just so precious. My spirituality has played a huge role in my life.
That's our guest this week, Dwayne Wiseman. Dwayne was born with dwarfism and is short-statured. He and his wife Sandy, who is also short-statured, have 4 children, 2 who have forms of dwarfism and 1, Alexander, who sadly passed away at age 1. It's a different and fascinating story, and we'll hear it on this Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast. Here's our host, David Hirsch.
Hi, and thanks for listening to the Dad to Dad podcast, Fathers Mentoring Fathers of Children with Special Needs, presented by the Special Fathers Network.
The Special Fathers Network is a dad-to-dad mentoring program for fathers raising children with special needs. Through our personalized matching process, new fathers with special needs children connect with mentor fathers in a similar situation. It's a great way for dads to support dads. To find out more, go to 21stcenturydads.org.
And if you're a dad looking for help or would like to offer help, we'd be honored to have you join our closed Facebook group. Please go to facebook.com/groups and search Dad to Dad.
And now let's listen to this fascinating discussion between Dwayne Wiseman and David Hirsch.
I'm thrilled to be talking today with Dwayne Wiseman of Palatine, Illinois, who's the father of 4 and works at J.P. Morgan Mortgage Company. Dwayne, thank you for taking the time to do a podcast interview for the Special Fathers Network.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
You and your wife, Sandy, have been married for 23 years and are the proud parents of 4 children, Jessica, 21, Marcus, 17, Thomas, 9, and Alexander, who sadly passed away in 2002 at age 1. Both Jessica and Marcus, as well as you and Sandy, have various forms of dwarfism. Let's start with some background. Where did you grow up? Tell me something about your family.
Well, I was born in Elgin, Illinois, and I have been pretty much raised in Schaumburg, Illinois. I have 2 parents still living, and I have a sibling who is about 3 years older than I am. She's average size height, so I am the only child with dwarfism. Yeah, I was pretty much raised here, and my parents pretty much raised me as just like any other child, and just wanted me to reach out to my full potential just like anybody else.
That's excellent. I'm sort of curious to know, and we'll get into this a little bit more. You had mentioned that you're the first person in your family with dwarfism, and that you have an older sister.
Right.
And I'm wondering if that created any challenges that your sister was taller than you.
Not well. I believe that maybe I might have had to maybe drawn a little bit more attention because of my dwarfism.
Okay.
I think because of surgeries that I've had, and my parents had to been great with trying to get me some surgeries, and that I needed to give me a better quality of life. But really, my sister and I had a good relationship. We just try to live a normal family life. It didn't really matter whether I was 2 feet tall or 10 feet tall. We pretty much live a normal life together.
That's excellent. So you made reference to some surgeries, and not to go into a lot of detail, but I'm wondering what was the essence of those as you were growing up?
Well, part of my dwarfism, spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, which is the second most common type of dwarfism, can have orthopedic challenges. So I've been very blessed with the fact that I had some hip reconstruction surgery, so I have the ability to walk. And I've had to deal with a lot of tubes in my ears and some vision challenges with retinal. Had to keep close eye on with my eyes. So yeah, it was basically more orthopedic related.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing. So I'm sort of curious to know, what does your dad do for a living?
My dad was in the educational industry. He pretty much came straight from college into teaching, and then he pretty much worked his way up to assistant principal to deputy superintendent. But now, today he is retired. So,
Excellent. And you mentioned that both your parents are still alive.
yes, yes. hmm
That's a blessing.
My mother was. She did work as a secretary in a school, separate from my father. But she did that, but she was majority of the time trying to be more part time. So she was with the kids.
Okay. So I'm sort of curious to know, how would you describe your relationship with your dad?
Yeah, it's a very good relationship. When I grew up, him and I were in Indian guys together, and so he was a good father mentor to me. He was always there to help me and get through obstacles, and he's a great father figure, and he was definitely one that I would call a role model when I grew up.
That's fabulous. Not everybody has the advantage of growing up with their dad. So I'm glad to hear that you were one of those.
Yeah, I definitely think the relationship is very important for the father and the son, and father and daughters for that matter.
So are there any important takeaways, something that always comes to mind that your dad did or said that you think about when you think about your dad?
It's just funny. My sister and I, we kind of crack up once in a while because he's always educating. He's got that educational background and teaching, and he's always a teacher. He comes home, he's still a teacher, and so that's just part of his nature to continue to educate and explain backgrounds of things and why things happen. That's just how he is. So one thing I remember that he's always wants the best for us, so he always wants to continue to educate us.
Okay, that's fabulous. So I'm thinking about other father figures, and I'm wondering what role, if any, your grandfathers played on your mom's side as well as your dad's side.
Yeah, the nice thing about, I was fortunate to know all four of my grandparents, and I grew up with them. Every summer I would go out to South Bend, Indiana, where they actually both live. My parents grew up in South Bend and high school sweethearts, so I've learned a lot from my grandfather, just watching him, what he does and around the farm, and got to hang out with him and bale hay, and I was really influenced with my grandparents.
So I'm thinking about school, and my recollection was that you went to Conant High School, then Eastern Illinois University, where you took a degree in psychology and business, and then got your MBA at North Central College. And I'm wondering, when you finished your education, what was it that you were focused on doing? Well, where did you start your career, and I guess how did you get to J.P. Morgan Mortgage Securities?
Well, I basically was kind of envisioning getting into more personal law, personal management, and then, but I did like financing. So I ended up wanting to get into a company with financing, and I ended up going to HFC, as a Household International, and then I kind of navigated over to Bank of America, and I was there for 18 years, and then I ended up working with JP Morgan for 3 years. So I ended up just migrating into underwriting. So I've been in underwriting for 20 plus years, and just enjoy it. I enjoy doing loans for customers, and enjoy the complexity of the loans, and I enjoy managing. I've managed for 15 plus years now, just helping out customers, helping out their financial lives by giving them a new home or put them in a better position financially. So I do enjoy what I do.
Yeah, well, what I like about what you're talking about is that you're lending people money, and that's usually a good thing because it's allowing them to do things that they want to do.
Sure, yep.
And it's very satisfying from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So my recollection was that Sandy, your wife, was from Washington State, and that she worked at Walmart in Arkansas, and that you met, I think it was, at a Little People of America event. Maybe you can refresh my memory. How is it that you met, and how did things transpire?
Yeah, we met at there's an organization called Little People of America, and it's an organization really more for those who are short-statured, pretty much for 4'10" and under. Most of the members have some type of dwarfism. You don't have to be considered diagnosed as a dwarf to be part of this organization, but it's a great organization you have a commonality of those who are short-statured, and the national convention is held at a different city every year, and at this point it was Denver, and I traveled down to Denver, and she was down at the convention as well, and that's where we met. We weren't dating at that point, but we got to meet each other, and then she ended up moving up to Peoria, Illinois. And when she moved up there, and I heard that she moved up there, then I started connecting with her, and we started doing the commuting and traveling and dating. On the weekends, she'll come up, I go down there. We just got to get to meet each other, get to know each other, and then I knew she was the lady I wanted to marry. So yeah, that's how we met.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. It's always inspiring to hear how people start their relationships. So I'd like to talk about dwarfism on a personal basis and then perhaps beyond. You had mentioned that you were the first person in your family to experience dwarfism. And I'm sort of curious to know, when was your diagnosis made and what type of dwarfism, again, do you have?
Sure. Well, my parents knew that something was not quite right when I was born, and they ended up going to St. Louis, I believe, and then doctor did some testing on me. In fact, my parents couldn't see me for a day or two because they did so much testing on me and trying to figure out a diagnosis of me, and then they finally concluded that I was born with dwarfism, and I was born with a spondyloepiphyseal dysplasia, SED for short. I think it was a relief for my parents to at least get to know what was going on with me. And then at that point, they kind of reached out and did more studies and trying to figure out more about what kind of expectations and what they needed to know. And I'm sure it was a nervous time for them, just the unknown of what's going to happen with this newborn child. But luckily, they were able to reach out with the Little People of America, which is great for educational and finding genetic doctors and doctors who can give you a little bit more insight of what to expect and what things you can do to help give a better quality of life for a dwarf child. So yeah, that's how my parents was able to figure out what was going on and why I did not look like an average baby. So
okay. So I'd like to think about the situation when you were a young person, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about being an adult. But I'm wondering, as you were growing up and going through grade school, middle school, high school, what were some of the challenges when you look back that you were experiencing?
Gosh, you know what? Because you are quote unquote different than others, I think others can relate as well. I got teased, been called names, small fries, and just being different. I think bullying was kind of known. I mean, it was happening then, it's happening today, just if you have some sort of indifference. So I think I grew up with that, but my parents were pretty positive and said, hey, ignore them, and I did have a pretty good confidence level. I didn't let that bother me, and I knew that I could just do anything I wanted to if I put my mind to it, and that's how my parents raised me. So that was one of the challenges. Obviously, the challenges growing up, too, is that I had some surgeries, and I've had to deal with being in a body cast for months, and I've had to go to another school that helps for those who have some disabilities for short term or even long term. So I've had to deal with adaptations at school. For example, it was hard for me to carry my books, so I've had to get extra set of books for home. I've had to give a little more time to get to classes so I didn't get run over. So I would sometimes leave class just a tad early so I can beat the crowd. At my high school, public school, I had over 1,000 kids in my class alone, over 4,000 in the school. So you can imagine how that could be intimidating to walk around. So all in all, I met friends. I knew you can kind of distinguish friends that liked you for who you were, for your personality, and for who you really are inside, or those who liked you because you are different and they just wanted to hang out with you. But one thing I've learned is who your true friends are and who just kind of want to hang out. But I really did have some good friends growing up, and so I was very appreciative of that, because I think one of the fears is being isolated from others. But I was fortunate enough I didn't feel that isolation because of my dwarfism. I really did have some good friends and really liked me for who I was. So yeah, there were some challenges, but on the positive, I thought overall I had a pretty good experience in growing up in schools.
Well, I think it's a great testimony to your parents that they help you build your confidence and focus on what's important. Like, it's what's inside you and the person that you are. It's not what might differentiate you from other people. In your case, your short stature, and easy to talk about, right? And more challenging when you're that person, right, that looks different or has something different about them. So I want to say thanks for sharing and being so authentic. So you mentioned that Sandy also has dwarfism, and I'm wondering if it's the same type or if it's a different type.
She has a type called achondroplasia, which is the most common type of dwarfism. So she's a little bit taller than I am, and but yeah, she's got the most common type, where she had more of an average torso, and shorter arms, shorter limbs. And it's pretty much achondroplasia is all average torso, shorter arms, shorter legs. My type of dwarfism, which spondyloepiphysal dysplasia, is pretty much a little bit maybe longer arms, longer legs, but a shorter torso. So yeah, there are differences. It really didn't bother us. We did have a commonality of being short.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing. And I recall a prior conversation, you had mentioned that when you got married and you decided to have a family, you had some important decisions to make, right? Because the probability of having a child of short stature, if you're both of short stature, is highly probable, right? And I'm wondering if you can just, explain to our listeners, what that thought process was and how did that sort of shake out from a percentage of probability, if you will.
Well, it's all genetics, and basically it's depending on who you marry. So because I married a lady with achondroplasia, and I have a different type of dwarfism, we had a 1/4 chance of having a child with achondroplasia, and then we have another 1/4 chance of having a child with spondyloepiphysal dysplasia, and then a 1/4 chance of being average size, and another 1/4 chance of having it's a heterozygosity, where you have a mixture of both achondroplasia and SED, and when that happens, the child can end up being underdeveloped. The organs will be underdeveloped and just have most of the time it is fatal. But I do hear that there are some still children with that double heterozygosity where they can still live. But I was very blessed that we did have a child with the combination, and did live for at least lived over a year before he passed. So there is definitely a chance that can happen, but my wife and I look at the approach of we wanted children, and we loved the gift of life, and so we were blessed to have 3 healthy children. So one child with achondroplasia, another child with SED, and another child with average size. So we've had one of each of our of the statistics of what we could potentially have genetically. So it was quite. So we're quite blessed.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing, and I'm very sorry again to hear about Alexander passing away at such an early age, at age 1. The better part of 2 decades ago now. And it's not lost on me that your older kids, Jessica and Marcus, are 21 and 17. And then Thomas is 9, and he's the one of average size. And is he the tallest in the family now?
Oh yeah, by far. Yeah, he's growing like a weed. So yeah, he's a joy, and we treat him just like anyone else. And he recognizes we're short stature, but it doesn't seem to faze him right now. So yeah, he's great part of the family. I don't think there's any ill feelings or anything about our heights, and it's great. He's great to be able to help out getting stuff out of the freezer, and he's been great. He's a wonderful kid.
Yeah, well, I imagine as he gets older and perhaps he gets taller, because he's only 9 years old now, that height is going to come in handy for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So I'm sort of curious to know, with your older two, if there's any particular challenges that you and Sandy have experienced, whether it's from a personal standpoint, emotional standpoint, a developmental standpoint, that come to mind.
Well, when you're born with dwarfism, we do have to keep up with some challenges physically, and so we do run around. My wife pretty much does the running around majority of the time with doctors, and my daughter, she's encountered orthopedic challenges along with some eye challenges, or just something that we have to watch for with our type of dwarfism. And the same with my son, he's encountered some challenges orthopedically, so he's had some surgeries as well. But it's just part of being parents. We want to give the best quality of life to them. I'm very fortunate that we're able to get them to some good doctors here in Chicago. It's one reason why we're here, because there is such good doctors and good school districts here, where we just felt like this is the place we want to be, especially for medical reasons for our kids.
That's fabulous. So I'm wondering if there's any meaningful advice that you got early on as parents for helping you navigate the situation, beyond your own personal experience growing up.
Oh, yeah, sure. Some of the advice that just be proactive. Especially, I went up to Wisconsin, met some genetic doctors who was very well versed of dwarfism, and they specialize in dwarfism, and just things to look for as you raise a child with dwarfism. Psychologically, you instill the confidence level in them. They're going to have challenges meeting friends, a little bit harder on the dating once you get into the adolescent stage. Being part of the Little People of America and the doctors that we've met up in University of Wisconsin, up in Madison, has certainly helped us out.
Excellent. Well, you mentioned a couple of organizations. The first is Little People of America, and then the second is University of Wisconsin, the ones with the specialty in geneticism. And I'm wondering if there's any other groups or organizations that you yourselves or on behalf of your family that have been important to you.
Well, it's ironic because now with the era of the internet and blogging and Facebook and everything else that's out there, it's amazing what you can find and be able to share your experiences now online. There is now a website and a blog just for those who has SEDs or achondroplasia. There's sites out there now that you can talk to each other and ask them questions. How do you drive? What did you have to do for the school district to help you go through driver's education? And it's great to have that resource online now that you can talk to people.
Yeah, that's excellent. And the information available today is greater than it's ever been. And I know that it allows us to connect with other people that have similar situations to our own. So I did have one question, sort of an afterthought, but I thought I'd ask you because when I was doing a little research about Little People for America and all these other resources that are out there, I stumbled across something called the Dwarf Athletic Association of America. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if that is something you or your family have been involved with at all.
Yeah, we call it DAAA, which is for Dwarf Athletic Association of America. It's a great organization for those with dwarfism that has a little bit harder time competing on their level in sports, track and field, basketball, soccer. There's other sports that you can be involved with in DAAA, and you get to play against those who are short-statured. And there's a teams organized together, and it's great competition. Normally happens during the same time as the national convention. And I was actually part of DAAA when I was in high school. I played basketball and I did swimming, and it was a wonderful experience to be part of a competitive environment within sports. It's something that those with dwarfism do not have. Well, I take it back. There are some of my friends that were involved in wrestling at a high school level. But really, this is a great experience to be involved with. And so I'm glad you brought that up. It is another great organization to be part of, the DAAA.
Well, thanks for sharing. So I'm sort of curious to know what, if any, role spirituality has played in your lives.
Yes, I definitely feel, I go to church I'm Catholic, and I go to church every Sunday, and I definitely believe that the life is beautiful, and I don't, it doesn't matter whether you're short, tall, or your color, everybody is equal, and just the gift of life is just so precious. So I definitely, my spirituality has played a huge role in my life.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing. I remember one of the other Special Fathers Network dads saying, and he's a rabbi out in L.A., saying that he doesn't know how some people get through challenging situations, especially, if you have a child or children with different challenges or special needs for that matter, without your spirituality, right? Trying to do it all on your own. He said, where would somebody find the strength to do that? So, he talks eloquently about the importance of spirituality. And, I heard you saying that as well. So thank you for sharing. So I'm thinking about advice now, and I'm wondering if there's any advice in addition to what you've already mentioned about the importance of being proactive, about instilling confidence that comes to mind, when thinking about your situation or just raising a child with differences for that matter.
Well, one thing I've learned is you've got to put yourself in a position to be successful. And one way of doing that is a good education. Do what you can to make sure you have a good quality of life in terms of your health. Make sure you go through school and go through college. Get yourself set up for a good career. And then if someday you want to consider marriage, and then you can consider marriage later down the line. But I've always been one and it's one thing I've been advocating with my kids is, get yourself set up. You might have a little rough time with trying to get yourself established, and just get yourself set up financially and with a good education, and then worry about the dating if you want. I know a lot of people like to date early, and I know that's kind of one of those things where I think they lose out on because of being short-statured, particularly in high school and college. But that will come. That relationships will come if one day you want to get married. But just get yourself a good foundation. And one thing I also try to tell them is that we're very blessed with how we are now more recognized as being more equal. But I've grown up where I've had some challenges finding jobs, and I don't know. And I think short-statured might have played it because of my physical appearance, but I told them, you're going to have some hard blocks in your life, and that's why you need to really step it up and get yourself a good foundation and improve yourself. That's what that's what I've been telling my kids.
Well, I think it's a really important message for all parents, right, to encourage their kids to get a good education. My grandfathers emphasized the importance of education. Part of it, from our family's perspective, was that they came from Nazi Germany. back in 1938, and they had to start all over. And my grandfather was often quoted as saying, it's how important education is, because it's one of those very few things that nobody can take away from you. And like you were saying, Dwayne, you need to build a good foundation for yourself, invest in yourself, because this is something that you always have, right? You always have to fall back on. And regardless of what the challenges are, who knows what life is going to throw at us. Today it's the pandemic, right? Who knows, what it's going to be, years from now or decades from now. But with a good education, hopefully you have the ability to think and to adapt to whatever the circumstances are. So thanks for making that point.
Sure, yeah.
So I'm sort of curious to know, why is it that you've agreed to be a mentor father as part of the Special Fathers Network?
Well, I do believe that I could share my experience and some of the commonalities, similar situations that we may encounter having maybe a child with some form of disability. I could certainly share my experiences and proactiveness of doing the research and doing what you can to give your kids a good quality of life. So I've experienced it, and I certainly like to share that with other fathers.
Yeah, well, thank you for being part of the network. We're thrilled to have you. And I think that you're in a unique situation because not only have you raised children with some challenges like we've described, but you were one of those kids when you were growing up as well. So you're not just speaking from a father's perspective, trying to help his son or daughter, reach their full potential, but you experienced that yourself. So I think that makes you an invaluable resource for the network. So again, thank you for being part of the program.
Definitely.
Let's give a special shout out to our mutual friend, Michelle Sullivan from Peoria at Caterpillar, for helping connect us.
Thank you, Michelle.
Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Gosh, I just appreciate this time with you, and I'm definitely looking forward to speak with other fathers. I just like to hear their experiences too. I certainly will be open and to help out others, and love to hear their experiences as well. So, yeah, all in all, I appreciate this time, and I look forward to being part of this group.
Well, thank you. So if somebody wants to learn more about dwarfism, Little People of America, or contact you, what's the best way to do that?
Well, the Little People of America website is just fantastic. There's great resources on there that you can reach out to the organization, learn the upcoming events within your area. There's local chapters that you can go to all across the country, all across the world. There's other Little People organizations in Europe and Australia and everywhere. So it's a huge organization. So definitely Little People of America website. And you can always reach out to me as well, and I can certainly give you some additional contact for inquiries that you have.
Okay. We'll put that in the show notes so it'll be easy as possible for people to follow up. Dwayne, thank you for taking the time and many insights. As a reminder, Dwayne is just one of the dads who's part of the Special Fathers Network, a mentoring program for fathers raising a child with special needs. If you'd like to be a mentor father or are seeking advice from a mentor father with a similar situation to your own, please go to 21stcenturydads.org. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of the Special Fathers Network Dad to Dad podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. As you probably know, the 21st Century Dads Foundation is a 501c3 organization, which means we need your help to keep our content free to all concerned. Please consider making a tax-deductible contribution. I would really appreciate your support. Dwayne, thanks again.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for listening to the Dad to Dad podcast, presented by the Special Fathers Network. The Special Fathers Network is a dad-to-dad mentoring program for fathers raising children with special needs. Through our personalized matching process, new fathers with special needs children connect with mentor fathers in a similar situation. It's a great way for fathers to support fathers. Go to 21stcenturydads.org. That's 21stcenturydads.org.
And if you're a dad looking for help or would like to offer help, we would be honored to have you join our closed Facebook group. Please go to facebook.com/groups and search Dad to Dad. Also, please be sure to register for the Special Fathers Network bi-weekly Zoom calls held on the first and third Tuesdays of every month. Lastly, we're always looking to share interesting stories. If you'd like to share your story or know of a compelling story, please send an email to david@21stcenturydads.org.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to subscribe on iTunes or wherever you listen. The Dad to Dad podcast was produced by Couch Audio for the Special Fathers Network. Thanks again to Reuben Law for supporting the Dad to Dad podcast. Call Reuben Law at 847-279-7999 and mention the Special Fathers Network for a free consultation. 847-279-7999.